Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my channel, Austin's Election Predictions. It's a new year, and I'm going to let you know what's coming up this year on my channel in terms of content, and then I'll discuss today's topic, which is the government shutdown and its effects on the 2020 presidential election, if there are any. You're going to look at a lot of polls and a lot of data, but before we jump into that, let's start with what I'm going to be talking about this year in terms of content. So, expect about one video per week, maybe two over the next few months during the rest of the academic year here in college until the summer, where it'll be closer to 2 to 3 videos per week. The next videos I'll be making will be a look at how polling organizations did in 2018, how far right they were, how far left they were, how accurate they were. There's a lot of really good data on that, and I've already started making that video, and that will be the topic of my next video. And after that, I'll be looking at each candidate individually who has declared for 2020 and who might declare for 2020. There are a lot of candidates who have already declared. Tulsi Gabbard declared very recently, and then there's some others as well. Beto O'Rourke is thinking about declaring in the near future, as is Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, and so many others. So there's definitely some good information out there in terms of candidates who are thinking about running for president and who have run for president. And I'm going to be looking at each of them individually. So that's going to be quite interesting. That's going to be the topic for the next few months or so. I'm going to do some head-to-head matchup stuff, but I think that it's actually more interesting to do an in-depth look at how candidates have done and how they will do moving forward. And I'll look at a lot of the preliminary data and eventually make some predictions about who's going to win that Democratic nomination. I think I'm going to start doing that within the next couple of months, and you'll hear some even earlier opinions over the next couple of weeks. But now let's jump into the topic of today's video, and that is the government shutdown. And all the data comes courtesy of politics polls on Twitter, and then some individual information from Rasmussen Reports at the end, which gives tracking data. Although you may not like their poll, a lot of people believe they're conservative, and there is some data to back that up. But I think it's just important to look at the tracking to see where Trump was a month ago and where he is now with the government shutdown. We'll get into that in a couple of minutes. But let's start with the information about what the American people are thinking about the government shutdown and who is most to blame. We have 4 polling outlets here. We have ABC, Washington Post, CBS News, The Economist / YouGov, and the Politico Morning Consult poll. So now looking at the data, 47% of people say that Donald Trump is mostly to blame for the government shutdown, according to Politico Morning Consult. Economist YouGov, they've got the president at 50%, CBS 47%, ABC, Washington Post say Republicans in Congress, and Donald Trump 53% put them mostly responsible for the shutdown. Those numbers are remarkably consistent. It's Donald Trump 45 to 50%, Democrats 30 to 35%, and Republicans in Congress 5%. If you're looking at which voting bloc thinks what, generally you'd have to think Republicans are blaming the Democrats in Congress, the Democrats are blaming President Trump, and a few Republicans and a few Democrats probably blaming the Republicans in Congress for not working well with Trump to get something done and working well with the Democrats in Congress to get a deal done. So you look at those numbers, they're consistent. You want to know some numbers that are not consistent. Those are the numbers as far as the border wall goes. We've seen some net numbers as low as 3% between the differential of support and opposition, and as high as 17%. CNN thought to be a little bit left as a polling organization. They were off by as much as 9% in certain polls in 2018 in the midterms. So maybe you want to take that with a grain of salt. But the numbers are probably between 7 and 12%, I think, in the difference between opposition and support. We see a 7% differential here, a 10% opposition, according to CBS News. Washington Post has it at a 12% differential. It's probably in that 7 to 12% range between opposition over support. Now that that's done, let's move on to whether or not Donald Trump should call for a national emergency or declare a national emergency. And the numbers are overwhelmingly against it. 33% say that he should declare the national emergency, 67% against it. Those numbers are mirrored in another poll where it had it at 31% say that he should declare a national emergency. The numbers are overall against it. The American people do not like that decision. If you would like any clarification on that It's just the idea that he doesn't get funding from Congress, then declares a national emergency, then gets funding from other places to fund the border wall. It's not a popular move for Donald Trump. We may see him do it anyways, but it would be struck down by a judge likely very quickly. So again, not a very popular move for Donald Trump to try to declare the national emergency and pay for the border wall if he does not get that funding from Congress. Now, moving on to the final part. This is in regards to how Donald Trump's approval rating has changed since before the shutdown to where we are today. Back on December 7th, this is before the talks really started about the government shutdown, about a month after the 2018 midterms. His numbers are high, according to Rasmussen reports. Rasmussen is generally thought to be a conservative polling organization. They've got his approval rating all the way up at 50%, disapproval at 49%. And then the net, this is between strong approval and strong disapproval. 36% strongly approve. Today, 32%. That means 4% of his base, that strong approving base, has dropped. You look at the strong disapproval, 41%. Now it's up to 46%. This is a 9% shift. That's not good news for the president, but I think it's even more important to focus on the general approval and the general disapproval. General approval was at 50%. And general approval is important because those are people who you probably think are going to end up voting for you in 2020. If you have the people who are somewhat approved and strongly approved, those people generally side with you. Somewhat disapprove and strongly disapprove, they're generally going to go against you. So 50%, that's good enough as far as approval rating. Well, that's dropped 7% to 43%. Disapproval, that's gone from 49 all the way up to 55. So that's a drop of 13% net. He was at +1. He's now at -12. That is a huge drop for the president. Now, as far as an effect on 2020, that's still 21 months away. I don't think that the shutdown here in January of 2019 is going to affect something 21 months away. I think that that's just a little far-fetched. Could it hurt the president? It could. I think if it extends for another month, another few weeks, and there isn't necessarily an end in sight right now, we haven't seen anything come together as far as bills go that are thought to be likely to pass right now or Trump's willing to sign. So we're not seeing an end in the very near future. And if we don't see an end for another month or so, that could hurt Donald Trump because we're working on record numbers now in terms of how long the shutdown is. On the other hand, if Trump's able to get his border wall funding, he can claim that he has now come through on his promises from 2016, and that is a big boost for the president. He can say that to his base. That helps his base. It helps his base get out, and it helps other Republicans come to the polls. But I think something that could help him even more than that would be reaching a deal with Democrats that not only funds the wall, but also gives the Democrats something, because that helps not only tell his base he got his border wall funding, it will generally satisfy the Republicans who were not super happy to vote for him that he's willing to work with Democrats. And it also helps moderate Democrats that he's able to work across the aisle. So I think Trump's best result here would be if he's able to work with Democrats and get a good deal. That could give him a lot more votes in 2020 if he works that out well. So he has to just play his cards right. And if he does so, I think this does not hurt him in 2020 and could even help him. So that's my ultimate conclusion about this 2020, or about this shutdown and its effects on 2020. Next week, I will be back with my analysis on each polling organization, how they did in 2018. And then I will be breaking down the chances of Elizabeth Warren. I didn't mention her earlier, but that's the first candidate we're going to look at for 2020 in the Democratic nomination. Until then, this is Austin's election predictions saying so long. We'll see you next time.